All right, welcome back for part three of early numeracy problem solving. And so what we're going to do now is we are going to watch Dr. Alicia Saunders, and she is one of the researchers with the Solutions Project, and we're going to get to see her implement the procedural rules and to show us the hand motions for that. So let me go ahead and pause this real quick. And here we go, Dr. Alicia Saunders.
Rules for problem solving. Each of these are designed so that they could be done directly onto the mat in case you do fade the mat prompt in the future. So this is the group graphic organizer. You have two small groups and you're combining them into one big group. So watch me first. Small group, big group. Do it with me. Small group,
Small group, big group.
Your turn.
Small group,
Good. So here's
big
the
group.
action. You're making your two small groups and you're combining them into one big group. Remember, these are two nouns and they have something in common. So for example, apples, bananas, and fruits. Cats, dogs, and pets. There are two small groups of different things. Okay. This is compare, and you would teach compare next because it's subtraction. And in compare, you're comparing two quantities, a bigger number, a smaller number, and you're finding the difference in between. So basically the students find which ones have a match and then which ones don't have a match. And those that don't have a match get pulled down into the difference circle and they count. So the rule here is bigger number, smaller number, difference between the two, and you kind of rotate your hand around that difference oval. Do it with me. Bigger number, smaller number, difference between the two. Good. And the final problem type is change. And change problems, you either increase or decrease a quantity of one thing. So for example, if I have apples in my basket, I add more apples to my basket. Or if I trip and fall, some fall out, I'm decreasing the amount of apples in my basket. These are often money problems. This rule is a little bit more complicated. You have one thing, the same, and you kind of model signing same. So one thing, same, and you're going to pick up like you're adding more from those manipulative files. So add to it or take away, change. Again, that's one thing, same, add to it, or take away, change. Do it with me. One thing, same, add to it, or take away, change. Now, the important thing to remember about any of these rules is, yes, they say it in the task analysis, but you want them to go back and add the nouns from the word problem. So, for example, I would say small group, big group, apples, bananas, fruits. Or for a change problem, I would say one thing, apples fell out of my basket, subtract, change, or take away, sorry. One thing, apples fell out of my basket, take away, change. So you're modeling what's happening in that problem.
All right, so that is an example of each of those hand motions by Dr. Saunders. Give me just 1 second to click out of here and get back to our PowerPoint. All right, there we go. Thank you for your patience. All right, so, what I want you to do now is I want you to stop the video, go ahead and number it, number your question, and I want you to write examples, one example of each type of word problem. And you're going to be able to go back, you can look at the PowerPoint. I encourage you to pull up Canvas and look at the PowerPoint because the PowerPoint has an example of each one of those types of word problems. So I want you to write a group word problem and make sure that you label so I know what type of problem you're writing, a change word problem and a compare word problem. And then after you've done that, come back and join me and we'll keep going. All right, welcome back. So let's make sure that we're clear on a couple of things. One thing is that when we're talking about sets and we only have one set, so in the case of the guy that was baking the cookies, all he had was one set of cookies, then we know that we're doing a change problem. We're either going to do addition or we're going to do subtraction. We're either going to add to it or we're going to take away from it. If there are two sets, then you know you're either going to do a group problem where you're going to group them into a big set, or you're going to compare the two sets to find out which one is bigger or smaller and by how much. So again, that's another way that you can look at the structure of your problem to help you determine what type of problem it is. Is there one set or are there two sets? And again, that gives you and your students clues as to what type of operation you're going to be using. All right, for this next part, this is what we're going to do. I am going to read to you a word problem. And then after I read the word problem, you are going to determine what type of problem it is. Is it a group word problem? Is it a compare? Is it a change subtraction? Or is it a change addition? And here is our first word problem. Aiden took money to buy snacks at the grocery store. Aiden took $8 to the grocery store. Aiden paid $2 for a bag of chips. How much money does Aiden have left? So go ahead and stop the video and determine how much, what type of word problem this is, and then come back and you can compare to what we find out as a whole when we look at the structure, okay? See you in just a minute. All right, when we come back and look at this, let's see what we have. So we have that he took money. So that's what we're talking about. We have one thing, we have money. And he took $8 to the grocery store. And then he paid $2 for chips. And how much was left? Well, that tells me that this is a change subtraction problem. That's what this is. It's a change subtraction problem. And so what it would look like is one thing, money. He had $8, one thing money. He took money to the grocery store and then he paid money for his bag of chips, and that was change. And so it might look something like this. Money, one thing, money, the same, $8 the same. Paid $2 for the chips, subtract, take away, change. Again, so he has one thing, it's $8 paid, $2, take away, change. All right, let's look at the next one. The next one. Oh, let me move my little self over here. Oh, let me go forward. Click, click. There we go. All right, on this one doesn't have numbers to it, but I want you to see that even without the numbers, you can determine what type of word problem this is just by looking at the structure of it. And then again, there can be clues with phrases or wording that is in it. So this one is, there are many types of birds at the beach. Ava saw seagulls, a number of seagulls at the beach. Ava saw a number of pelicans at the beach. How many birds did Ava see at the beach? Now, when I look at this, what I see is I see two small groups. I see seagulls and I see pelicans, and we're combining them into a bigger group of birds. So it would be small group, big group. And if we have a small group and a small group, that we combine into a big group, what type of word problem is that? All right. Now, if you said it was a group word problem, you are correct because we have, again, we have a small group that we are then combining into a bigger group. All right, let's look at our next word problem. Mia compared rainy days in September and October. September had 10 rainy days. October had 8 rainy days. How many fewer days did October have than September? Go ahead and write your answer and then come back and we'll compare. All right, so when we look at this, this is a compare, and we know that because it says that Mia compared rainy days. So that is a clue right away, as is the fact that it has a compare phrase by saying how many fewer. And so when we look at this, we have a bigger number, a smaller number, and we want to find out the difference between the two. And so when we do that, we might say 10 rainy days, 8 rainy days, subtract the difference between the two. How many fewer? All right, now let's look at our next one. Our last one, again, we don't have any numbers, so just looking at the structure to determine the type of problem it is. Abby bought lemonade at the school dance. She bought a number of lemonades, then she bought a number more lemonades for her friends. How many lemonades did Abby buy? So go ahead and look at your structure and then determine what type of word problem it is, and then come back and let's compare your response to the answer that we get when we're in a group. All right, so when we look at this, what we notice is we have one thing, it's the same, it's lemonade, right? So it's one thing, it's the same. She bought lemonades and then she bought more lemonades. How many does she have together is the change. And so it would look like one lemonade, one thing, or lemonade, one thing, it's the same. She had 8 lemonades. She bought two more, add, change. And so that is an addition, a change addition problem. All right, so hopefully you did well on those. If you did not, feel free to reach out, but this is also a good place for you to look for examples of different types of word problems and examples of those specific types. So reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to work with you on that or explain it in more depth if needed. All right, so next we're going to talk about the teaching sequence when we're teaching word problems. And so we teach them in a very specific order. We start with group problems, which is addition, which is much easier. So we're going to start with the skill that's the easiest. So we're going to start with group word problems. Then we're going to move to subtraction with compare word problems. And after that, we're going to do a mix where the students have to determine, do they use addition or subtraction? But we're only combining, doing a mix of group and compare. So group, then compare, then group and compare. After that, you do change add by itself. We don't do anything else. Change add, then we do change subtract, and then we do change where we mix those two together. Do you need to do change add or do you need to do change subtract? And it's not until you have done those 6 steps that then you do a mix of all of them. And the students have to determine what operation and what type of word problem it is. And again, this is the sequence, the learning sequence, or the learning trajectory and the teaching sequence for word problems in the areas of addition and subtraction. All right, so what type of problem do we start with and why? This is your next question, so go ahead and number it, do a little quick write, and then come back and we'll move forward. What type of problem do we start with and why? All right, well, let's see what you remember about word problems. So this will be next on your participation list. Is the first one is word problems have how many lines or parts? Word problems have how many lines or parts? The next one is, after you do that one, is we should not have students focus on what? What do we not have students solely focus on? And then the next one, this is just your idea. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, so I want you to do a little brainstorming ahead of time, is how do teachers in secondary classes make the problems more difficult? So go ahead and stop your video, answer those questions, and then come back and we'll move forward. All right. So if you want to know the answers to those, hopefully you got them, is that it has word problems have 4 lines and that you should not focus on keywords. That's what we're not going to focus on. And we're going to be talking about secondary classes in just a little bit, so we'll hit that in a minute. So the big thing I keep saying is don't teach students to look at keywords to solve the problems. Don't teach that. You can teach looking for keywords or phrases as part of the whole, but you cannot rely on keywords. Well, why not? Let me show you why not. So here's an example. John has 5 notebooks. Mary has 3 notebooks. How many more notebooks does John have than Mary? Now, when we look at that, what you would look at if you were teaching key words would be the word more. That would be your key word. And if we look at this is a compare word problem. This is a compare word problem, okay? Let's look at the next one. John has 4 math problems to do. He has done 2 math problems. How many more math problems does he have to do? And so in this case, if we look at this, and these do not have the anchor sentences in there because we're only looking at the structure, so they don't have the anchor sentences. I want to make sure I say that. This is a change subtract problem, but it also has that word more in it. And if you only taught the word more, how would you know what to do? And would you get it correct? All right, now let's look at a third one. John has 3 cats. Mary has dogs. Mary, who has dogs, let me start that again. John has 3 cats. Mary, who has dogs, has 1 more pet than John. How many animals do they have together? And if you look at this, this is a group word problem. but it also uses the word more. So if you only focused on the key word, your student could easily be led astray because you can see that word more could indicate three different types of word problems. And so this is what I want you to think about is for a single step word problem, single steps is what we're teaching right now. Keywords lead to correct answers, and this is the number of times that just that keyword does. A change problem 20% of the time. An equals problem 31% of the time, and a comparison problem 56% of the time. So if you only teach keywords, your students are more likely to get the answer or the solution incorrect than they are to get it correct in most instances. And so, how do teachers in secondary schools make problems more difficult? Well, here are some examples. You can have students solve problems with the missing values. And this is what's known as solving for X, right? You've done that before. I'm sure you've all had to take algebra at some point. So, you can have students solve for X. You can have them solve for medial quantities. And this is more difficult than not solving for X, is solving for a medial quantity rather than one that is missing at the end. So the one that's missing at the end is 4 plus 3 equals, that's your ending quantity. Your medial one would be 4 plus blank equals 6, for example. And so here's an example actually of a medial, one that is missing a medial quantity. John had 3 video games. He went to the store and bought more video games. That's your X. Now he has 5 video games. How many video games did John buy at the store? And so what you would be solving is 3 plus X equals 5. So that is one way you could make it more difficult. Another way you could make it more difficult is having it be missing the initial quantity. And this is the most difficult when you think about teaching it when you're teaching, because we're teaching algebra. That's what we're teaching. So John had video games at home. That is our X. We don't know how many he started with. He went to the store and bought 2 more video games. Now he has 5 video games. How many video games did John have at home? And your equation would be X plus 2 equals 5. Again, this is a much more difficult word problem, but it is appropriate for secondary classrooms because, again, when you're in secondary school, when you're in middle school, high school, you are working on things like algebra. And so this is difficult again because you start with that unknown and you have to hold that total in your head. You got to hold it in your head so it's more abstract. And then you can always make it more difficult by moving beyond addition and subtraction and moving into multiplication, which is just repeated addition. All right. You could also use larger numbers, decimals, or fractions. And there is an example of this in one of your lesson plans examples. I think it's a small group one, if I'm not mistaken. But you could teach this using fractions. And here's an example. Because your denominator stays the same, then what they're doing is they're adding those numerators. And so you could build this word problem process into fractions or decimals or larger numbers. Instead of doing within 10, you could do within 20 or within 50. You could also combine addition and subtraction in the same problem where they have to add something and then they have to subtract. Or you could use more complete or more complex things like making it multi-steps or making sure that they include reasoning. You can use a math story-based lesson. You can make sure that you're using real context and again, making sure that you're using multi-step problems. So those are just examples of how you could do it in secondary classes, but right now we're really just focusing on, again, how do we teach word problems? So how are you feeling now? Are you feeling okay about it? You got it? I'm feeling okay, need a little more time, or I'm completely lost. Let me know where you are, and as always, reach out if you need any support. Make sure you ask questions in class. I'll be available after class if anybody needs anything. All right, I'll see you in the next video.